So people have been warring against us from day one, right? So I want to welcome everybody here. I'm gonna put a few things up so we know what we're talking about today, and I'm going to put a reminder for those who want to support us in the work we do. All right, family. I want to get right to it. So Donald Trump has won the election. It is what it is. Whether we want to accept that or not, regardless of our feelings on that, that's something we need to accept. He has won the election legitimately or otherwise. He is the person that is being accepted as the new president of the United States starting in January. And since we know that he is connected to the Heritage Foundation, he is also connected therefore, to the Project 2025. Harlem Liberation School has done its best to educate the community on that, what it entails, the different policy proposals, and how it would negatively impact our community. Some Black people in the community, God bless them, have taken a position, oh, white people always been negative with Black folk and always tried to oppress us, and therefore didn't pay this much mind. But trust me, if you've been watching his speeches lately, you're going to get a sense that to take this lightly is a mistake, family. And we should do something about it. Now, at the same time, the crying, the whining, the apathy is not going to help. It is counterproductive to simply complain about this, come up with great ideas with no logistics, not to operationalize the ideas. That's not going to help. And taking the approach that if I just ignore it or do nothing, that's not going to help. When people war against us, we war back, we fight back. We have the God given right to resist. We have the logical right to exist. We must do that. We do not lay down and let people violate us, oppress us, misrepresent and mistreat us, and act like it's all right. That is not our history, and we are not built like that, right? We also need to be clear that it is true. Since the 19th century in the United States, Black nationalists and Pan Africanists have proposed and implemented a variety of initiatives to help our people, to protect our people, to build the type of power base we need. And so I want to be very humble and tell you from the outset, much of what I'm going to say tonight is nothing new, family. It's building on a foundation of what our ancestors, going all the way back to um, people like Marcus Garvey and even before Garvey, have been saying for centuries, decades. This is nothing new. Come on in. It's nothing new, right? So I want to be humble and say that I'm not standing here as no guru. I'm a historian and a community organizer and author. I take what I studied from the past, what I've implemented in my own life. I'm not one of these people that's just a talking head on YouTube, family. I have been part of movements that have changed universities, taught students how to change, create the change they want, and help parents get rid of racist, incompetent principals in schools. I'm not just talking, right? All right. So I want to say that. So let's get into it. Number one, we absolutely need to build and support independent Black organizations, right? First and foremost, we got to prioritize this. We need structures we can rely on so that we're not dependent on white political parties or their policies, for example. And speaking of which, I have said repeatedly for at least 5 years, 10 years, that we really should create a national Black political party. It is ridiculous that in the year 2024, our only real conversation was, should we vote for Kamala Harris or should we vote for Trump? And we had no independent party candidate to vote for that we trained, that we funded, that we picked, right, to run for an office that represented an agenda that we created. Even the independent parties like the Green Party or whatever party was running had their own candidates had their own platform. So I'm thinking that one of the things in this 4-year run this guy is going to have is that we need to be really creating a national black political party. Now, I've said this before. Some people said, Brother Agyei, in case you didn't know, there are some national black political parties. With no disrespect to them, I haven't heard about them. I'm talking about a viable national black political party that's in all 50 states that runs its own candidates and things of this nature, right? So, and I think that to be very clear on what I mean by this, that we should create a national black political party that has tentacles, right, in cities, and we should develop a national black agenda, and then we should train and run our own candidates, especially at the local and state levels where we can really exert power and where corporations are not quite as powerful as they are at the national or the federal level, right? And then I'm going to move on to number 2. At certain points, I'm going to stop. I'm going to look at the comments we have and make sure I didn't lose nobody. And hopefully I can finish the time. We can have some questions and you can get into that too. All right. All right. ER Hawk, I'm going to get to you, brother. Be patient. It just started the broadcast. The brother said, if you don't have a plan for self-defense, nothing you saying is making sense. Well, brother, I just started. Wait, that's part of the plan. Be patient. Think the best of your people, brother. Always think the best of your people. All right. So let me move on to number 2. We must create and support Black-owned cooperative economic enterprises. We're gonna be doing a video soon called "Supporting Black Businesses is Not Enough," and that is true. In a capitalist economy, just keeping dollars circulating in the Black community, that's what we've been told for decades. That's not enough. That's not enough to counter capitalism's impact, because even those businesses operate within the capitalist framework. Many of our businesses are unable to compete fairly because of different dynamics within capitalism. So we're going to have to do more than support Black businesses, especially those that are running from a strictly capitalist base. Therefore, we might want to look at cooperatively owned sort of business. We got to exert more control over our economic destiny by creating and supporting enterprises that we collectively own, that allow us, by virtue of having many people have ownership, to buy things in bulk, to give great discounts to our community, and to employ people in our community, right? And I want to also say that we are a colonized people in the United States, so we have to recognize that. This is not going to be easy. A lot of these things will be challenged by our adversaries. A lot of these things will be difficult. So I'm not just saying this in a naive way, like these are things we can do overnight. This is going to take struggle. We're going to make mistakes. We may take a few steps backward, but we have to start now so that in 4 years, 5 years, we have something foundational that we can build off. That's very important. Don't get caught up on how bad it's going to be and how difficult it's going to be. Assume it's going to be difficult. Like all of our social political movements had to deal with difficulties, right? But they pushed through regardless. All right. So number 2 is those cooperatively owned economic enterprises. Number 3, family. We absolutely must politicize and organize our families and communities. Now you're going to notice it's a mix. I dealt with some macro level stuff. Now we get in micro level, our immediate vicinity. Family is the foundation. It's the fundamental unit in our society. It's the foundation of liberation. So we have to work on strengthening the bonds in our household. We have to work on strengthening relationships in our families. We got to work on resolving problems between family members. We really do, because we all have them. We not only that, we have to make sure that we build relationship with our neighbors. If we live in urban areas like I do in Harlem, where we live in apartment buildings, some of which can be 20 stories high, family, we have to actually start politicizing our neighbors in our building where we live, on our streets where we live, family. We have to start speaking to each other, showing concern for each other, seeing how we can be of service to each other, right? Very important. Our unity makes us unbreakable. So we have to host family meetings. We have to teach our children their history. We have to ensure that our elders are protected and honored. And when we invest in each other like that, it's almost like we're building fortresses that no administration can tear down. But it's very important. And I want to say also, with respect to this, those of us like me, us in Harlem, we live in communities that used to be mostly Black and now have a heavy Latino presence. Let me be very clear. Remember, many of the people we call Latino are part of the African diaspora. They come from countries Afro-Cuban, Afro-Brazilian, Nicaragua, and all Uruguay, and all types of different countries. And I want to be really clear. Some of us say they come here to take the job. They come here, we have an animosity toward them. And it's really interesting. We need to be clear. The reason they're coming here is because this country we live in ruined their native lands, ruined the soil, raped, pillaged, and plundered the people throughout history, exploited their labor, put them in these really unfair trade agreements, right? Charging them huge amounts, tariffs, making it difficult for people to survive in their home countries, putting in puppet governments, killing off their indigenous leaders that they could trust. And so, yeah, of course they're running here. This is the country billed as the land of plenty, right? All over the world. The propaganda is that America is the greatest country on earth. And so everybody's looking here. And the reason they're looking here is because this country destroyed their countries. Don't forget that. Don't have animosity towards the Latino population running over here any more than you have animosity against continental Africans that are coming over here. America tried to destroy Africa too, and all these other countries. So have grace and mercy and know your history. Understand that just like you, they're trying to live their lives and make an existence and survive and get the best for their kids. Don't be mad with them. Be mad with the country and the government structure and the mentality that destroyed their countries. Bond with them. If you say they're ignorant and they have an anti-Black, okay, educate them. You said they don't get involved, they voted for Trump, okay, politicize them. Don't be apathetic with this. This is solid grassroots community organizing work. If you're surrounded by people of color with whom we have similar oppressors, similar histories, bond with them, teach them, politicize them, like the Black Panther did in the 60s, which is why you have the Young Lords Party, which is why you have the Brown Berets and things like this. This is what this is how community organizes things. We don't just say, oh, the Puerto Ricans and Dominicans, they don't like us. So what? Politicize them, educate them, tell them where they come from, family. Don't be apathetic. Be assertive with this. So when I say that we should politicize and organize our families and communities, I mean that. We need to be going out here and teaching and educating, politically educating the people that are in our neighborhood, family, so they know what time it is, so that we can count on them as allies. John Henry Clark said, we don't have no friends. He's right and exact. I'm not talking about friends. I'm talking about allies, people with whom you have common interests, a common history, and they have something you need and want. You have something they need and want. We fight together around those issues and interests. That's very important politically. Let me move on. Let me just stop real quick. We got some comments. That's my beautiful queen right there, Brenda. She says, Wukusu, that's the Harlem Liberation School's greeting. It means wake up, clean up, stand up. And she said, in this space, we just everything with a spirit of love. That's right. That's right, queen. We come here. See, I don't know how y'all was taught, but the elders that taught me, including my parents, taught me expect the best of my people. Think the best of my people until they show me different. But go into it like my people are innocent until proven guilty. My people are intelligent until they demonstrate they're ignorant. My people, you understand, it's very important, because if we go in with this negative thinking, family, You create a negative vibration and you repel people. We got to think the best of our people. The white man wants us to hate on each other, right? Because he hates on us and we hate on each other. We doing his work for free. Nah, we're not doing that here. Also, we have Amin Ra in the building. Powerful name. Free the land. You better believe it. It says free Palestine. Absolutely right. We did a video on the history of Israel and Palestine that you need to watch, so you know why many of us who consider ourselves revolutionary or progressive or radical are absolutely in support of the Palestinians' fight for sovereignty. And Amin Ra agrees with the Independent Political Party. Absolutely. Says checkmate. I think Amin Ra likes that idea. Very good. Thank you. Those of you who have comments, keep them coming. I'll put them up as the best I can. Point number 4 of 7 points, 7 things black people need to do in the age of Trump, and stop the whining and the bitching and moaning and complaining. Oh God, Trump is here. Do something about it. What you gonna do? Right? Okay, number 4, fortify our political education and leadership training. Now, political education is critical. Every time we start a broadcast, we play an excerpt of Chairman Fred Hampton breaking down what he saw as the importance of political education. He said in the party, the Black Panther Party, you can't even be a member if you don't have the political education, right? He says without that, you're nowhere. You can't even explain what you believe and why you believe it and what your tactics are. And he said you're nowhere, right? And he's correct. In this day and time, we especially when we see that we got some people in our neighborhoods who Trump has said over and over he hates, he wants to deport, he wants to split their families up. He says they eat dogs, and he says they thugs and rapists, right? Absolutely hates these people, and yet a significant number of that population voted for him. They need to be politically educated. Don't please, family, hear me. I don't speak as a regular, I speak as a community organizer. We think different. We're out to win. We're not just waving flags and saying our shay. We out to win liberation. And when you're fighting a war, you have to be tactical. You have to think critically and strategically, right? So we must talk about turning up not the notch of our political education. If you're already involved in that, like we are at Harlem Liberation School, then you need to say, how can we accelerate what we do? How can we better spread political education? How can we reach more people, right? Because the Trump presidency signals a return to the blatant attacks on Black people and other people, almost a return to the time pre-Civil War. To understand Trump and his cronies are the ideological, if not biological in some cases, descendants of the Confederates family. And you know what happened, right? The Confederates lost the war, and those people taught their kids and their grandkids, and they kept going to this day. Those niggers won, and those white liberals won. Carpetbaggers, they used to call them, scallywags, they used to call. And we got to get this country back. This belongs to us. When he says, "Make America great again," he's talking about make America white again. Whites in power and blacks on the bottom. So we have to really ratchet up our political education, right? To fight effectively, we have to know the history. We have to know the policies used to harm us, the tactics used to divide us and confuse us and make us powerless. And we got to know the strategies that we have historically used to resist this. We must bring study groups back, targeted study groups. What was Marcus Garvey saying? What was the key planks of Garveyism? What was the UNIA trying to do? What was Malcolm trying to do with the Organization of Afro-American Unity? And Amilcar Cabral and so many other people. What are the bases of grassroots organizing, right? We have to support our community-centered Black educators, our veteran community organizers. We should be having workshops on the regular that are hosted by brothers and sisters who love Black people and who have a record of serving Black people and who have a record of winning. Not just you served, but you served and you were winning. You took Black people to a better place. That's very important because we not only have to have the education, we have to know the ins and outs, the nuances of leadership. We have to do like Snick was so masterful in doing in the 60s. We have to teach Black people how to organize. Teach Black people how to knock on them doors with the clipboards, ask questions, call people, have events and have tables and sign people up for committees, have rallies, and lay out your political agenda and platform, and identify your adversaries and why they're your adversaries. We have to bring that back. And that's not something you're born knowing how to do, family. I wasn't born knowing how to organize. I had to be in organizations. I was trained by elder peers and elders. I had to read and study. I had to go through things, make mistakes, analyze the mistakes, and go back out. So we have to teach community organizing. We have to teach effective leadership, how to run press conferences, how to preside over meetings, how to raise money, all of these things. I'm going to check again, see if we have any comments I missed. Okay. The queen says exactly. She agrees with something. If my queen agrees with something I said, I'm happy. I don't know what it is she agreed with. Hey, but she agreed. Blessings. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Let me continue, family, so I don't have you here all night. Right? I believe. Okay. Number 5. Now, the brother who was saying, if you don't defend yourself, then all this makes sense. If he had been patient, he'd have seen number 5 is protect ourselves and our communities. Family. It's not that if we don't protect ourselves, none of this makes sense. It's that if we don't protect ourselves, none of this will last. It won't matter because we have a lot of different times in our history where Black people had cooperatively owned businesses, had thriving economic communities. You know, people kill me. They act like they don't know any of our history. We need to do this. Yeah, we did that. Well, we needed it. Yeah, we did that too. Well, what about? Yeah, we did that too. But every time we mounted these different movements, initiatives, or campaigns, the enemy came when they became threatened by these initiatives and destroyed them. Tulsa is always thrown out. We always hear about Tulsa, but understand they had planes that dropped bombs on Tulsa. They had white people that was coming out that with guns and wholesale shooting and killing on people in the street, unarmed Black people, fam. So it's very and chasing people out of town. It's very important that we understand that our people have fought back in every historical era the best we could. But we must prioritize our safety. And this is not just physical. This is not just military. This is stuff like knowing your rights, at least according to the Constitution, knowing how you get down when the police come to your door talking about they got a warrant. You knowing how you deal with that. You put that little chain lock, you open the door, you ask to see the warrant, you close the door, you do not let them in your apartment. You read that warrant, you make sure it has the proper date, you make sure it has the proper spelling of the person's name, make sure it has the proper address. If any of those things are off, that warrant is invalid. You give that warrant right back, you close that door, boom. You do not let them in your apartment. Once you let them in your apartment, they can look and anything they see that's suspicious, boom. Now you open up a can of worms. They see that little blunt you left on the ashtray, boom. They see a little liquor, they can say, oh, what's going on in here? Now they can start investigating and finding things for which to bring you into the precinct. So you don't do that, but you need to know that. You need to know your rights and how you get down in these different scenarios. You driving, you with your man, my sisters. I have to say this because I've been through this 4 times almost. And the cop stops you and you start cursing and you going off on the cop. Do you understand that he's going to likely kill that man that's driving that car? Understand that. Because they always see us as the physical threats. So that means you're going to have the discipline to know I need to be quiet right now. Let that brother handle it cool and calm. And if your brother, if he's going berserk and yelling and cursing, then you got to be cool enough to be, baby, let me handle it. If he ain't handling it right, then you handle it. But whoever's talking to them, has to talk to them in a certain tone, in a certain way. And they may still get killed. But these are the things we do for our survival. You live another day, then we plan how to respond. But that has to be taught, right? So when we say protection, we're talking about knowing how to act, how to conduct ourselves, knowing our rights, training, self-defense, martial arts, marksmanship, arms, but it also means preparing for emergency. What happens if there's a martial law declared in your neighborhood? And now the supermarkets are only open certain times a day for limited times a day. And there's long lines of people waiting on it, and you can't get toilet tissue and you can't get light bulbs and flashlights and food. How do you prepare for that? How do you respond to that? If people need to be evacuated from a place, how do you deal with that? So when we say protect ourselves, we need to be very nuanced. Some people think self-defense is just a matter of fighting with guns, and they don't understand it's way deeper than that, right? Okay. And it's very important that we understand when we protect ourselves and our communities, we send a message. We are not victims. We are not having it. If you're gonna get some, if you're gonna bring some, you're gonna get some. And we are survivors and fighters. You know, there was a great African philosopher named Biggie Smalls. And you know what that African philosopher said? He said, there's going to be a lot of slow singing and flower bringing if my burglar alarm starts ringing. Did you hear what the African philosopher said, family? Does that resonate? He's setting forth a policy. And he's saying, if you violate that policy, there will be consequences. But before we even get there are things that we can do to protect ourselves. Don't be the rigid thinker that thinks that self-protection is this one thing. It's a whole lot of things. For instance, when you have your own money and you have your own network, you have a building, let's say a residential building like I live in, and you have an understanding, you guys have been meeting all year, you do events together, you politicize and educating each other, you're supporting each other, and you've committed. We won't let one black or brown person in this building go hungry. We won't let one elder in this building be attacked. We won't let one child in this building be sexually assaulted. That's a liberated zone. And as you extend that throughout your block and community, you're protecting yourself because you can now rely on each other. You're not completely dependent on your enemy. That's a form of protection as well. So the queen was right, and it's very important, family, that we have nuance, that we don't be so rigid, that we think in this unilateral way. The way that you beat your enemies before you even on the battlefield, you beat them, and you do that through tactical, strategic thinking and community organizing. It's very, very, very important. And by the way, the queen puts forth another excellent point. One of the best ways you can defend yourself is by educating yourself, right? So that means I read a quote one day. It said, if your mind is your weapon, you are never unarmed. I go out the house, I'm never unarmed in that respect. Is this I'm thinking? I'm not going to run off at the mouth with the police. I'm not going to be overly aggressive with people. I'm going to live. I'm going to survive. But I'm also going to build relationship so that the Latino that owns the little Mexican restaurant, he sees and knows what's going on. He knows that somehow, some way, he's descended from our people, and he has a respect. And the Dominican that owns the barbershop, we've been building with him. We've been politicizing. We've been having conversation. So he knows that somewhere in this, we're family. And whatever he was taught negative about us was some bullshit propaganda. Yeah. See, this is how you build movement, family. Right? Ali Cologne says he appreciates it, Baba. Excellent, man. I appreciate your appreciation. We have to teach each other, and we have to do it before it's too late. Because we are being warred against. Some of us are not fighting back. We don't think it's a war. We don't think it's a big deal that Trump's president. We don't think Project 2025, oh, that's not no big deal. I've been hearing this all for months. I'm like, okay, watch his press conferences. Listen to what he's saying. Listen to what he's saying. One thing, talking about he's going to sue. He's going to get rid of the Board of Ed. He's going to take it out of Washington. He's going to put education in the hands of the states. Now, if you know the history, you know that one of the reasons that we have a federal government and state government is just in case the state governments do something out of pocket, right? Where does this come from? Well, because the so-called founding fathers realized that when they had every state was its own government at one time. I'm talking about the original 13 colonies that became states. They were their own government. So that means you can go from one state with one form of currency to another state had a whole different form of currency. One state had a militia, the other state had a different militia. One state had one state had a government, the other state had its own government. So they say, wait a minute, this is crazy. We have to coordinate this. And what happens if one of these states is in violation? If the state has total power? So the federal government was given power. Right? In case you don't know the history, let me take you back. Back in the 60s, when our people were fighting the segregation in school systems, in public schools, in Arkansas, the governor's name was Orville Forbes. The federal government, well, obviously, black people were trying to integrate the schools in Arkansas, the public schools. Governor Forbes said, we're not having it. So let me tell you what this white man did. He used his state power to close down every public school in the state, family. I'm going to say it again. The governor of Arkansas during the Civil Rights Movement closed down every public school in the state. He used his power as governor, as the state president, if you will, to lock down all the schools. Why? So he wouldn't have to integrate them. See what happens when the state has all the power? He's talking about returning all the power to the states. You got to know the history to understand what that means. When King and the different civil rights leaders were banging on them, what they were arguing was, oh, the state has the power. Our state doesn't want that. Segregation now, segregation then, segregation now, segregation forever is what George Wallace said, the governor of Alabama. He could say that because they were arguing states have complete rights. So the federal government had to send in the National Guard. You got to know the history. So you understand what this means when he says that. He's taking it away from federal government, putting it to the states. That means you better hope that the state you live in is not a former Confederate state, family. Because if it is, chances are those governors are not going to be too keen on certain things being taught. He said that they're going to be firing teachers that are teaching anti-American education and politicized education, right? So you know what that means, whitewashed education. I was part of a movement maybe 10, 12 years ago. We got rid of a white racist principal who's right in the heart of the South Bronx, the home of hip hop, and she trying to tell the teachers they can't teach anything about Black history. We got her ass right out of that school. Yes, we did. We organized and did it. Right. So it's important that you understand what's going on, family. We really, really have to. Pardon me. We really, really have to be on this. We have to protect ourselves and our community. Now, let me go forward. Step 6, or let's not look at it as step 6, but a 6 point in this. Right. We have to develop food security. The white man is real good with euphemisms. When we used to call a dude was starving. Damn, I'm starving. Now we say they're food insecure. And by using that euphemism, we kind of soften it. Now he's starving. Say it right. That gives the sense of urgency, right? Our survival largely depends on reducing our dependency on systems that are designed to exploit and neglect us, right? So this issue of growing food, it's not a cute thing we do. Oh, I got a little garden, it's cute. No, it's not a bourgeois concept. For us, that's a necessity. That's a survival move. Independent black farms, hydroponic farms that people grow in their homes here, like here in urban cities where I'm at, New York or wherever you live, is one piece. Teaching people to preserve food, like my grandma and them used to do back in the day. The jellies and the jams, and they had the mason jars where they preserved fruits because they whatever they grew is what they ate. Family, there wasn't no food stamps for black people back then. In the time I'm talking about, so whatever you grew is what you ate, and during the winter months you had to eat when you couldn't farm, so they had to learn to preserve food, right? But not just farming and food preservation, we have to be able to service the black people in our communities that have no food. One of the things Project 2025 was very clear about is that it's going to be more difficult for people that have, quote unquote, received social services to keep receiving them. It's going to be more difficult for people that need social services to get them at all. So this means that we are going to have to come up with creative ways to feed our own people, right? To clothe our own people. So we might want to think about having food pantries. Schools have food pantries. Places of worship have food pantries. You see the people with the long lines and the soup and the shopping carts by the church. That's because they're going there to get free food. Around Thanksgiving, you see this a lot, because of the whole tradition of the turkeys and all that. But we need to have pantries all year round because of the epidemic, because of capitalism and greed. A lot of food prices are soaring. This is all over the news, and what I'm talking about. So this means, do we wait for the white man to solve it? No, because he's the one that caused it. So that means that we can't sit around and complain about what he did and what he's not doing. We have to now step up as men and women and put in place what our people need to survive. This doesn't mean people get gourmet meals all the time, family, but make sure they're able to eat. They got their grains and their starches and the vegetables and the meats and proteins. That's important. This means that we need to start hitting up those athletes and those singers and hip hop people and Olympic stars and those corporate CEOs that have an affinity for their people. And we need to start getting money to start setting up the ability to store food in bulk, all types of food. I was in Connecticut one time and I saw this pantry. And this lady, man, I got to give it to her. I don't know her name, but she had grains, starches, and vegetables and meats. And I was like, wow. And they were servicing anybody that came, I think, in that particular county. And we have to think like that. We should be, every church should have a food pantry. Every black-owned business should keep food and water to be able to offer people who may have been their former clients or customers who are low on food. This is the way we have to think, especially with what is definitely coming our way, family, in this next 4 years. So black farmers and there's these urban gardening movements, they're leading the way with this, but we all need to play a part. Self-sufficiency is the foundation of true freedom. Let me stop, see if we have any comments. No. Okay, I'm gonna go on to number 7. Oh, I think I may have forgotten to put it on this. Hold on. Okay, hold on 1 second. Let me make sure that I have this posted so you can see it on the screen. And this is so very important. The last piece I'm sharing. And I know somebody there, one of our cynical types, they say, well, he didn't cover this. He didn't say that. Our people are funny, man. You can never please some of our people, fam, no matter what you do. Family, I'm not going to be able to say everything. I'm not the guru. I'm not the Wizard of Oz. I'm doing my best to kind of summarize the things I think are most vital and important at this time, right? So, yes, Queen, we should invest in Black farms. And I really want people to understand that sometimes the people that are in position to do a great work for our community, they won't think to do that great work for the community. It won't come to their mind, oh, I should donate money I should have food pantries. Their mind may be on building schools. A lot of our celebrities are investing in schools now, and that's great. I'm an educator, I'm gonna support that. But guess what? We need to eat. That's an emergency. If bad goes to worse, we can take our kids out of school and we can homeschool them. But if you don't have no food, you're not going to eat, period. So that means we must be assertive. We must be proactive. If we find a need that some of our people that have a little bit more paper, a little bit more money, and an affinity for the community, we got to reach out to them and say, listen, LeBron, Mike, whoever, we need you to really, Serena Williams, we need whoever you are, some of the hip hop artists, we need y'all to put money away and put it in our communities for food storage, for technology, and things of that nature is very important. Very, very, very important, family. All right. Last piece is number 7. Remember, I told you humbly at the beginning, I didn't come up with all this. We have great Black people, Martin Delaney and Henry Highland Garnett, and people like Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X, who nationalists, Pan Africans, have been saying this forever. These things we're talking about. I'm just building on them. Another thing we need to do, we have to build global connections with our people on the continent of Africa, the motherland, the cradle of civilization. I don't care what the teacher told you, that's what it is. The oldest living remains have been found in Africa, family. Anthropologically, historically, we know that is the cradle of civilization. The white man may try to convince you that they wouldn't know. No, sorry. It's Africa. And Africa has 65% of the world's farmable land, family. 30% of the world's most important mineral resources, family. Right? This means that the continent is in position to do imagine international trade, food, fabrics for clothes, and all types of things of that nature. Just imagine the type of business that could be if it's coordinated. But that means you can't just jump and do business with people you don't know, you don't speak to, you don't know the language. It means what? Family, you got to build relationship with people, right? It means we got to strengthen ties with our brothers and sisters in Africa and throughout the diaspora. We have to visit virtually and literally. If we're talking Caribbean, South America, Africa, or Europe, our struggles are interconnected, and so are our solutions. Some people say, "Oh, them Africans, they think they better." You know what, family? Listen, some of our people think they're better. That's not just people from continental Africa. That's what they need us to believe, so we don't organize and we don't unify. If that's the case, we have to educate people. You politically educated. How many people have I met in my life that told me, man, I was deaf, dumb, and blind, but I was out here gang banging and selling drugs and pimping women. I have heard this story a million times. And then I saw the Nation of Islam brother selling the final call on the corner. And then I went into the mosque. This is what I've heard people say. And I heard Malcolm. This is what I heard my elders say, man. Or they went to a UNIA meeting. My grandfather's generation. That's what I heard. Or they read the Black Panther Party's newspaper, or a sister said, come to our meeting, brother. In other words, our leaders don't just sit around and say who's ignorant and who's not. They know that our community is ignorant because they know that we must be ignorant in order for white supremacy to work. Amos Wilson famously said and wrote, in order for white supremacy to work, Black people must be out of their minds. So that means that they work feverishly and spend exorbitant resources to keep us ignorant family and bickering amongst each other and hating on the immigrants that look like us because they immigrants and hating on black people that got accents because they got accents and making really ugly jokes about each other. That must happen for them to win. We must be divided. So what we're saying here is we got to build relationship with our people in different lands. We got to go. You taking your vacation? Think about going to Africa. Think about going to the Caribbean. Start going to these different sites, building relationships. Some of you have lineage or heritage on the continent that you can trace. You know, people, living family members, or in the Caribbean or South America, or wherever. We got to start connecting that, family, and we got to start becoming savvy to do trade. We got to. Some of us may want to learn Swahili and learn some languages so we can communicate, but we must collaborate on economic, political, cultural, and political initiatives, family. Globally. We got to learn about Pan-Africanism. We have to participate in cultural exchanges. Look for ways to support one another internationally. Cultivate meaningful relationships. Develop pipelines. Listen, some black people don't want to stay in America. Some black people say, I had enough. They're looking to go to other countries to live. So why wouldn't we facilitate that by creating pipelines, organizations, so that if black people in a certain state or part of the United States say, I want to go to Nigeria, Ghana, Sierra Leone, wherever, South Africa, wherever, we can facilitate that. We already are thinking that way and doing that. Some people may want to evacuate and go somewhere else. We should be facilitating that. We should be thinking proactively and doing that now, right? In large scale for those who want to go to different countries or repatriate to Africa. That should be an option that we have available because we're thinking ahead like that. You know, and also want to remind you, our power grows exponentially when we embrace our shared identity and our destiny as people of African descent. Right? I want to make sure there's no comments. Okay, I see a comment. Make sure Derek Witherspoon, we should separate from our enemy totally what forces do for self. Well, you know, Brother Derek Witherspoon, I am a nationalist. I am a student, if you will, of Malcolm X and Garvey. And that is exactly what I'm thinking. But I also think when we say separate, there's a few ways to look at that. I have some comrades and friends that are part of a movement fighting for Black self-determination. So you got the Afro Descendant Nation, I believe it is called. We got Sister Elena Porter in Georgia. She's working with some initiatives. She has the Pendo Institute. They're teaching about sovereignty and self-determination. And she has a configuration she was sharing with me where we actually don't leave the country. We actually are in the cities right here in the United States, but we maintain sovereignty and self-determination in that way. But I absolutely agree. Whether we're talking about leaving the territory of the United States or staying here in enclaves that are self-determining, we absolutely must be able to provide food, clothing, shelter, education, healthcare, and things like that for ourselves. And by the way, I missed something very important. We have to think about how do we take care of our people who are infirmed, who are sick, who are ill. We have to really think about that. You know, and I remember talking with Baba Daruba Ben Wahar, and he's telling me, man, the Black Liberation Army was so tight. They had doctors and nurses on, you know, that worked with them, that were regular Black people that worked in the hospitals, but they volunteered because they loved the people. And because the Black Liberation Army masterfully built relationships with the barber shops, the grocery store owners, the teachers, the doctors. You see, you got to talk to people in the community. Build land, build relationship with people. Because there's doctors, there's attorneys, there's farmers, teachers, all types of people who love Black people, but they don't wear it on their sleeve. They don't wear red, black, and green. They don't wear dashikis. They don't speak Swahili, but they live in this country and they're looking for ways to help our people, right? So we need to start building relationships. We need to start thinking about medical care. How do we take care of elders? If something were to happen and we need to evacuate, how do we make sure that our elders get their medication? We don't even think about that, do we? But think about it. You had to move real quick. You got grandma and grandpa. One got diabetes, the other got high blood pressure. They take medications that save their lives. And nobody thought to stockpile not just food, not just water, not just clothes and weapons, medication. That's something we could do today. Start stockpiling those medications. The doctor says, I know you used to take this blood pressure medication. Do you still need it? Say yeah. Even if you don't, stockpile that stuff. We could do that nationally. We could have a medication bank, food pantries. I hope y'all are following me in how I'm thinking about this. But Derek Witherspoon, you're absolutely right. And man, listen, there is so much land in America. Let me tell you something. Every time I'm in a car and I'm looking left and right and I see all that land that is untended, no one's living there, it's just land. It gotta be millions of acres of land that is uncultivated that could be leveled out, the trees could be leveled and people could inhabit it. Nobody's doing anything with it. And I agree with you again, Dirk, with the spoon. The most honorable Elijah Muhammad was one of the best who ever did it. We know that. I don't care what you think of him, family. Because when you think about who comes out of the honorable Elijah Muhammad, Brother Malcolm, Brother Farrakhan, whatever you think about these people, and one of my jignas, Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad. So you gotta give respect where it's due. So absolutely, Brother Derek. And so family, I want to close with that. I want to thank you for listening and watching. I hope that you found this useful and relevant. And you know what? I hope that you go back to your community and your family and talk about this. This is gonna, when I finish, it's gonna be recorded. And you'll be able to see it again on YouTube. I hope you watch it with your families, family. Let's have discussions about this. What do you think about what brother said? Do you think that we can do this? What do we need to do to start it? Let's start the discussion in our church. Listen, I'm talking about in your church, your mosque, your synagogue, your temple. I'm talking about in your tenant association. I'm talking about on your block association. I'm talking about in the schools. I'm talking about wherever. These are discussions we need to have. And we need to start yesterday. Who knows? In 4 years, who knows where these initiatives could be, right? When America started out, they was a ragtag bunch of savage white folk didn't know how to farm. That's why the first group of them that came here damn near starved to death and were eating, had to boil their shoes and their belts and was eating rats and snakes, fam. But look at them now. You got to start somewhere, right? So I hope that we take this seriously and really talk about it. I think I'm going to have a part 2. We're going to get into depth in some of these things, and I'll have some guests that can speak to some of this stuff more specifically. I want to thank you for watching, family. Please, before I leave, please click the subscribe button, subscribe to our channel, share the video, and let's build and let's save ourselves. We are the leaders and the saviors that we are looking for. And with that said, I just want to say to you, family, what I always say, if we study, if we organize, if we employ community organizing, grassroots, guerrilla journalism, self-determination and self-defense, we will win, family. It ain't no mystery. We know what the game plan is and the blueprint is. Peace and Black Power. Thank you for watching, family. God bless.